There's this quiet war being fought right now, not for oil, not for gold, but for a resource that powers our entire modern world. And get this, over half of it sits underneath just 3 countries in South America, countries that are about to become some of the most important on Earth. We're talking about lithium. And understanding its story, well, that's the key to understanding the next century.
Think about it. Your phone has it.
Your laptop definitely has it.
And yeah, the car of the future, it runs on it. It's called lithium, and right now the United States and China are locked in this massive battle to control it.
So let's be super clear about what's going on here. We are living through the biggest energy transition in human history, period. The whole world is shifting from oil to electricity, and every single electric car, every battery for the power grid, every single storage system for renewable energy, they all need lithium. And here's where it gets kind of crazy. The scale of this shift is just mind-blowing. The International Energy Agency predicts that the global demand for lithium is going to multiply by 40 times before 2040. Now, that's not a 40% jump. That is a 40-fold increase. This isn't just some market trend. This is a fundamental civilizational shift.
But here's the catch. Lithium isn't just spread out evenly all over the globe. Nope. The vast majority of it, we're talking the most accessible, highest quality stuff, is all packed into one specific corner of the world, a region that we now call the Lithium Triangle.
Okay, so this triangle, it connects 3 nations. You've got Chile on the west, Argentina over on the east, and Bolivia up to the north. Together, they hold a jaw-dropping 58% of the world's known lithium reserves. But, and this is a big but, each country's story is completely different.
All right, let's break this down. First up, you've got Chile. Think of Chile as the established veteran in the game. It's already the world's #2 producer, it's got decades of experience, all the infrastructure is there. Then there's Argentina, which is kind of the sleeping giant. It has enormous reserves and, right now, a more business-friendly approach that's pulling in tons of foreign cash. And then there's Bolivia. And Bolivia, well, it's the great paradox.
And this brings us right to the heart of the whole story. It's this massive question. Why does the country with the single largest lithium deposit on the entire planet, the Salar de Uyuni, produce almost nothing?
There's this brutal truth about natural resources that we've seen play out over and over again. Just because you have them doesn't mean you're going to benefit. I mean, look at the Democratic Republic of Congo. It has more cobalt than anyone, yet it's still one of the poorest nations. Or Venezuela. It had the world's largest oil reserves, and we all know how that story ended.
And this is exactly the trap Bolivia fell into. The government nationalized its lithium, basically deciding the state would control absolutely everything. It sounds like a noble idea, right? Keep the profits for your people. But in reality, it meant that all the technology, all the investment, and all the expertise from the rest of the world, it just never showed up. So what you get is what you see here, the world's biggest lithium deposit, just sitting there, largely untouched, while global demand is absolutely exploding.
And that right there, that is the geopolitical tragedy at the heart of the Lithium Triangle. The one country with the most potential to completely change its future might just be the one that gets left behind.
But of course, this power vacuum in South America didn't go unnoticed. While the US was focused on the Middle East, China made a move back in the early 2000s that, looking back now, was one of the most brilliant strategic plays of the century. They decided to corner the market, but not in the way you'd think.
So instead of trying to own all the mines themselves, China played a much smarter game. They focused on dominating the middle of the supply chain, the processing and the refining. See, the raw lithium you pull out of the ground is pretty much useless by itself. It has to be chemically processed into this high-purity stuff we call battery-grade material. And China realized, hey, building these complex chemical plants is way cheaper and faster than developing mines, and it creates this critical choke point. If you control the refining, you control everything. And just look at this chart. Today, China controls roughly 60% of the entire world's lithium processing capacity. So it doesn't matter who digs this stuff out of the ground in Chile or Argentina if almost all of it has to be shipped to Chinese factories to actually be made into something useful. And on top of that, Chinese companies have been busy locking down deals in all 3 of the Triangle countries.
So the takeaway here is pretty stark. They didn't just play the long game. For all intents and purposes, they've already won the first round.
So where's the United States been in all of this? Well, to put it bluntly, they're playing catch-up, and they're scrambling. The Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 had all these huge incentives to build a battery supply chain at home, but man, it is a race against time.
This timeline really puts the problem into perspective.
China started making these huge strategic investments way back in the early 2000s. The US is just now making its big policy pushes 2 decades later. It's like they're showing up to a dinner party where most of the seats are already taken by people who've known the host for years.
Honestly, the real question at this point isn't whether the US can come from behind and win this race. It's about whether they can avoid losing their entire stake in the energy future altogether.
So, with all that said, where does this leave the 3 countries at the heart of it all? In this global power struggle, who actually stands to win?
Well, Chile is already in a really strong position. It's got the infrastructure, and now it's starting to demand better deals. Argentina is perfectly positioned to catch this next big wave of investment, as long as its politics stay somewhat stable. And Bolivia? Well, Bolivia is still the great unknown. The treasure is still there, but the window to actually use it is closing fast.
When you really boil it all down, this isn't just a story about a mineral. It's a story about destiny. It's about whether 3 developing nations can finally use this once-in-a-century resource boom to fundamentally change their place in the world, or if they're just going to watch all that wealth flow somewhere else, just like it always has.
Look, the global energy transition is happening. That part's already decided. The world is going electric. The only question left is who's going to control the materials that make it all possible. The world's battery is sitting in their hands. The real question is, will they finally be the ones to profit from it?